buy shares, by investing shares, where you get income from them, is that the same as getting sued?
It depends on what share you buy. If you buy a share of horse racing or dog racing, then that is haram from another point of view. That is forbidden. But if it's normal trade or industry and you buy the share, there is nothing wrong with it. Yes, I know you're ever ready, but yes, please, Akram first. Akram Ahmadi. Has your brother left for Middle East?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Next. Those who believe in the theory of reincarnation claim that the suffering which is going on in the world today is perhaps because of the misdeeds in their previous lives.
The previous life, correct?
So how do we answer to that kind of question?
First, should be a common question to prove.
Sorry?
Before you begin to answer the question, you must put a counter question. Where is the proof of the previous existence? There must be some proof. And apart from it, I'll speak on this subject a bit more length. Although I discussed it in Germany 2 years ago in detail, but that was in Urdu. The fact is that the concept of theory of incarnation, reincarnation, can be proved to be obviously wrong by the facts of nature as we observe. Now the philosophy behind this theory is this, that if a generation indulges in evil tasks, evil deeds, that generation in particular, when it is reborn into a lower state of life, not in the same state of life. The human state is the higher, and the animal state is the lower. The more the generation would be evil, less likelihood there would be for their being reborn as human beings. And more likely it would be for their being born as worms or insects, or at least lower order of life, of animal life, that is beasts and snakes and lions and things like that. Because the reversion begins downwards from man to the lower species. Starting backwards, we can say apes would be the first, and then the other species, whatever God has, the order God has already arranged. Now that is the philosophy. And we know, as anybody else does, and as the believer in this philosophy also do, that for the last 100 years at least, man is becoming more evil than previous generations. You can even put it back to many centuries. But that be so, let's call it 100 years. What should have been the observed fact would be that human beings would be depleted and the animals would outgrow the human beings. Because from one pocket you take things out and add to the other pocket. They cannot go on increasing at the same time. What we are observing is exactly the opposite. There are many organizations worried about some animals being extinct, and they are also worried, the human beings as such, about the overpopulation. The population explosion is the most feared event of the present century. So if the human beings are becoming more and more evil, the societies there should be about the possible extinction of human beings, not of animals. While it's exactly the other way around. They say that bird is about to be extinct and that animal is about to be extinct, and human beings are exploding in their population and number. So this observed fact belies the theory categorically. Unless they should also believe that whatever we do at present, the man does, that is approved by Allah, by God, and Allah says yes, they are doing well, and also animals are also becoming very pious nowadays. So they are, lifted in status to the human status. This all hocus pocus, just a philosophy without foundation, without rhyme or reason. There is nothing in it.
What they also claim, sir, is that, for example, in one life you can be in a position of authority, and because of your misdeeds when you are in a position of authority, in the next life you would still perhaps come as a human being, but at a lower level.
So that means that only the communist world is the world of evil. All the rest of the world is okay. Because more and more people are subjected to one authority in the communist world. In the free world there is no evil. The only evil that appears to in the eyes of Allah is behind the Iron Curtain. That should be the natural inference from this. Everything is absolutely wrong, mythical. There is no sound foundation or scientific evidence to support this theory. Yes, please. Now, are you going to ask one of the borrowed questions you borrowed from Mr. Rashid? No? That's your own. Good.
So what does Islam say about fortune telling and palm reading?
Fortune telling and palm reading.
Fortune tellers and palm reading.
Islam tells that لا يجبر على غيره أحدا إلا من ارتضى من الرسل. Allah does not share His knowledge of the future with anyone except are the chosen ones among the prophets. And He discloses the events of the future to them as He pleases, to what extent He pleases. That is what we know. So the fortune tellers are no prophets, and they are no scientists either. There are only two ways of making a prophecy which should be acceptable to a man of common sense. Either the prophecy should be based on a scientific system, or it must spring from a being, it must come from a being which has the knowledge of the future, direct knowledge of the future. That being is God. So those who believe in God, they have to accept this philosophy which is presented by Islam, that unless Allah Himself tells anybody of the future, nobody else can directly know the future. And also, this is true, the religious people believe in both these prophecies, scientific prophecies. That means that you read the signs of nature and predict that this is what is happening, this is what it will lead to. That is also a very sensible way of making prediction. But in between the two, all is superstition. So far I have not come across a single person who could produce any evidence or establish scientific basis for fortune telling as it is understood nowadays. Yes, please. There is also one question there. Yes, please.
From the Quran, there is 4 types of food which we're not allowed to eat. And then it says we're allowed to eat anything else which is regarded as wholesome. Now, in different countries they regard this different food as wholesome. Like in England, pig is regarded as wholesome. In France, frog legs. Wholesome. And in France, frog legs and Aborigines ants. Can you tell us what hadith is and from the Quran what is regarded as wholesome, please?
Yes, wholesome is a term which is not opposed to forbidden. It's quite a different terminology. It should not be misunderstood. Are those things which are not forbidden? Allah tells us in the Holy Quran that you should also eat the wholesome from among them, as you understand them to be wholesome. So it's left for you to decide. The wholesome is left for anyone among the human beings to decide according to his own customs and his own likings and things. For instance, a child, if he does not like, for instance, prawns, there are certain children who do not like prawns. You can't force them upon them because you think they are wholesome. Chinese eat such food as it is of their liking. If initially that food is not forbidden in Islam, then it is for the Chinese to decide about their wholesomeness. And it's not for us to impose our concept of wholesomeness upon them. So it's a free word. Wholesome should be interpreted according to your own likings, even according to individual liking. That is one concept of wholesomeness. The second is that it should be fresh and without harmful elements. That is also the meaning of wholesome. So it is a medical question. If a food is in a state of decay and it is being infested with bacteria and could cause injury to your health, even if it is not forbidden in religion, still the Holy Quran says don't eat it because it is not wholesome. So either way, this is quite understandable and a common thing.
That's a different question. There was an airplane crash.
There was an
airplane
crash. Yes.
And there was no food awareness. And the people ate other human beings. Now, forget about moral vision for now. Is it permitted in Islam, if there is no food around and you're just about to die, can you eat another human flesh?
Is it possible to allow to eat human flesh if there is no other food available to save life?
It is not only permissible, it is in fact imperative on human life to be saved. At whatever cost, but not at the cost of the live ones, at the cost of the dead. You can't say that a Muslim's life is in jeopardy, so a Sikh should be devoured. That is not permitted in Islam. So life holds sanctity against life, but death does not hold sanctity against life, whatever the nature of that death be. But it should be only taken recourse to the very minimum essential for survival, that is all. No, I've seen you after ages.
Yes, I was engaged on some work so I was sorry, but these days I'll finish that, so I'll be right back. Thank you.
So we were missing you, you know.
Yes.
Many a time it was mentioned that you have not been seen.
So
Have you been sitting very much often during this work?
Yes, I have.
Sitting too often, huh? Sitting too long.
That's
It's obvious.
Assalamu alaikum. Please, in the course of reading Taskra, one comes the English translation. One comes across certain figures like 7, 14, 12, 13, and it's difficult really for me to understand the chain of thought is broken when those figures emerge.
For instance, be more particular about choose one figure and
I observed that 7 and 14, then 12.
Where are they mentioned?
In the year, I've forgotten the 18, where the book is divided into sections based on years, 1880, 1881, like that. 1890, there's one there, 1881.
I still can't understand what you actually mean.
You read the paragraphs.
Paragraph?
No, of Taskra. The Taskra.
Oh, that's now I understand. I thought you were talking about the Holy Quran.
No, the Taskra.
Now I'm already find this. The dates mentioned are the approximate dates when a particular revelation was revealed to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. When it says 1891 September or August, or it doesn't mention the month, but between 2 months, just the year is repeated, that means that according to the available evidence, most probably, and in some cases definitely, that was the date of the revelation.
But then you get the numbers coming in rapid succession, like 12 and 14.
In series.
In series.
Are you talking of the numbers mentioned in the border?
Not in the borders.
But in the revelation itself?
In the revelation itself.
So it depends on which revelation you are talking about. Unless you specify the revelation, I will not be answer a particular question in generalization.
The years are clear, like 1880 or 1880.
But where is it? Unless you better specify. When you return home, you specify, write down the whole revelation with the number in it, and then we'll see what we can do about it. Yes, Dr. Mujibullah Sahab. Now I think Mr. Rashid is getting a bit restive. After you, before another time today, inshallah, we will
Thank you very much.
use the opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum. During your Majlis Khan 3 days ago, you reminded us of a tradition of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which it was said that for a moment this world is like a hell, and for a kafir it is like a heaven. But we also know that it is said that for a moment is given Jannatan, one Jannah in this very world and another in the hereafter.
This world is like a prison to a believer and like a heaven to a non-believer. He refers to the freedom of action. In Jannah, you will do whatever you please and you will not be forbidden from any trees. But on this earth, you are forbidden from eating the fruit of certain trees. So you are imprisoned because you are restricted. And not only one tree. In fact, according to the do nots of the Holy Quran, there are hundreds of things which are forbidden. And for every order, do's, there is a counter do not. So in fact, all the 700 roughly there are 700 do's and do nots in the Holy Quran. Every one of them becomes a do not. Some directly and some as a shadow do not of a do. So in that cases, for a moment to live a life of such restrictions is not an easy job. Restrictions are put upon you as to, again apart from them, to get up at a certain time, in do's as well, to behave in certain manner, to eat in certain manner, to see to it that you don't eat that and eat that, and also do not misappropriate and behave like this to your parents and elders and like this to your juniors, your children and so on, and be watchful of what you send for the future generation or for the life to come and so on. There are 101 things in the Holy Quran and in traditions which restrict the life of a believer. So in that sense he is living in a prison. And that living in a prison is of his own volition. He could break the prison walls if he so chose, but he does not. While a non-believer, a non-conformist, does as he pleases. He can kill everybody, he can take his revenge as he pleases, he can usurp other people's money or rights and enjoy himself as he thinks. So it is like a heaven to him, because in heaven it is said, whatever you desire, you can do that there. You have total freedom. So in this sense, these comparisons should not be extended to the entirety. Only they are comparison in certain short spheres. When the Holy Quran tells us of the heaven of the moments, it means that they love Allah so much that to abide by His wishes or His desires or His injunctions or orders is their pleasure or becomes ultimately their pleasure. And those things which appear as restrictions to the outside observer that do not remain any more restrictions. They become pleasure. Moreover, after a while, living in certain restrictions, you also acquire a taste for those restrictions. Like it happens in civilization. What is civilization against beastliness? A number of restrictions. It breaks down to this. In the world of beasts, there are no restrictions. In the world of civilization, there are certain restrictions even as to how you should put your fork and where you should put your knife and how you should use them. And if you don't do that, then you are looked down upon. So there are more restrictions put on by civilization on a civilized people than perhaps by a religion. But because people get used to them and they have acquired that taste, so that becomes a heaven to the civilized people. While to begin with, when you begin to teach children how to behave civilly, it is a hell for them. Have you not seen children, rebelling against their parents? You are interfering with our lives, you should do this and should do that and should not do this and should not do that. To begin with, they thoroughly, disapprove of what's being done to them. But once they grow up and they are used to these things, then they take pride. And they look down upon those who enjoy a sort of freedom as compared to them. So it is all a world of comparisons and relativity. The hell becomes a heaven for the people, and the heaven becomes a hell ultimately for those who think they are in heaven. So those who really believe in Allah and act according to His desires, His wishes, not only orders, but I am intentionally using the word wishes. They want to do it, ultimately, once they are trained. The same world of restrictions becomes a world of pleasure for them. And that is when they receive their heaven. Yes? No, I'm sorry, I promise. No, I promise you.
I have more than one question really, but I will allow him. I have more than one question really. I'll come back for the others later on. This question is from Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah Ta'ala says, Ya Bani Israel azkuru ni'mati allati an'amta alaykum wa awfu bi'ahdi ufi bi'ahdikum.
Read it again, please.
Ya Bani Israel azkuru ni'mati allati an'amta alaykum wa awfu bi'ahdi ufi bi'ahdikum fa iyaya farhabun. Allah Ta'ala has promised Bani Israel and He is reminding them of their promise. Could you kindly give us detailed promise on both sides, please?
No, I won't. The whole of Sharia is a promise, a covenant. So how do you say that Sharia is your life? That's what I meant.
I'll come back sometime.
I would like to ask that in the beginning of Surah Al-Zuha wal-Layli idha saja ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala, and the later part it says فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Would you kindly enlighten us about this subject? Is totally different. What relations we have in this?
That part has been dealt with. And the fact is, it's a long exposition. The central point for you to be understood is this, for you to understand is this, that this is, in this case, lafo nashar murattab is involved, has been employed. Lafo nashar murattab means that those words which are mentioned in a certain order, they apply to the following group of words in the same order. So the whole of this surah is a beautiful example, illustration of employment of this technique, Lafu Nashar Murattab. If three words are used in a certain order about a certain situation, the following three would tally with them in the same order. That is all that I can say at present. So you apply your mind to it and try to find out the meaning and the connection, then you will enjoy it much more. But if you still can't solve the riddle or decipher the meaning, then you better refer to Tafsir Kabir.
In Asian country, beggars are so much, and in this country there is none.
But it has nothing to do with that. Amma Sa'ila Fala Tanhar is, now I understand your problem, is misunderstood by you. Sa'il, you are a Sa'il. You are not a beggar, are you? Sa'ala means question, put a question. So the word beggar is not used. the word sa'il is used. Sa'il is the one who inquires about a thing, anything in the world, any inquirer. So whatever from this verse has been wrong. This is why it put you into problems, difficulty.
So it will enlighten all of us that. It will enlighten all of us.
It has already enlightened everybody by my telling you. Come on. Yes. After him.
When the Arabs came to visit you.
Which
The spokesman. The one who's been the spokesman. Yes. Well, I've met him again since then. We had several chats. A long chat. One of the arguments he put forward was that according to him, the Sahaba of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, all or the majority of them were of the opinion that the term Khatam al-Nabiyyin meant the last of the prophets.
Where is the proof?
Well, I asked him.
Ask him and then tell me.
Well, he put one person, Ibn Abbas, the Prophet's cousin, and I said, well, I'd ask around because I've got no knowledge of this.
I'm quite certain that there is no proof. It is just a conjecture. On the contrary, we have the proof that Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha did not think of it like that. She interpreted it exactly in the opposite.
Well, yes, they're very clever way of getting around this. They say that this particular disease, when she said that you should not...
So when he discards your hadith and criticizes it, you should criticize the hadith he put forward to you. I mean, it's a two-way game. Let him first produce the hadith. He can't.
Well, I've asked him to do this, but I said I
So when you are ready for the question, then ask the question. Right?
So what does Islam say about people who are, let's say, a majority in a country but do not have the same democratic rights as a minority? Can they then turn to, let's say after 50, 60 years of peaceful negotiation or getting the rights, can they turn to, let's say, guerrilla warfare, that type of thing, or terrorism?
Islam does not say anything about this situation as you have described. Not in such detail. But Islam says that this order should not be created in an established society. Number one, you should not punish the innocent for the misdeed of a criminal. Number two, if you are wronged, you have a right to take your revenge to the extent that you are wrong, but from the person who has wronged you. These are the guidelines. So all put together, you can make your own conclusions. But within the framework of these guidelines. But in guerrilla warfare, most often than not, the innocent are suffering. It is the innocent who suffer, not the criminals. You create disorder in the land, and those people who are co-sufferers of you, they are being blasted out of life. This is not Islamic. But if those who are the wrongdoers, your revenge is directed to them like a good rifle aim, and it does not hurt the innocent, and you stick to this general principle that you are not permitted to transgress. Only to the extent that you have been wrong, you can take your revenge. Within this general policy of Islam, you can take measures, not without.
But surely it's the society that creates its leaders. and society is part of that whole system. So who do you take your revenue?
No, society, you say society has not created that leader. You say the majority is not in favor of the leader. So how can you say the society has created the leader?
Who has the power? I'm thinking maybe of South Africa now, really.
So define yourself and then put the question.
Well, it's the whites who are the minority there, and they have certain privileges, and they want to cling on to those privileges. And no way will they give those, and surely the people...
The fact is that if once the rule of a minority has been accepted by the people, and law and order has got established, after that you have no right to disturb that society. But how you should do it, I'll come to that. Number one, you start from this premise that if a usurper comes to you, you should fight it out. You have every right. You must not submit to him or bow down to him. And if that war continues, you are permitted to do whatever you please, whatever is within your right, your power, to chuck such a usurper out. But once you have accepted the defeat and an authority has got established, then to create disorder is not permissible. The way out, number one, hijrah, and number two, attack from outside and open. As an attack which is not like thieves, but committed attack like armies invade another country. Now this is the solution which has been given by the Holy Quran. But if somebody is not permitted to migrate either, or the other countries don't accept them, then you have your right to fight it out within that country. But after this first attempt, it is better to leave the country, go to some other place, and then turn back and try to overpower the enemy. If you can't do that, you are not permitted by the enemies to leave either, then you are free to do whatever you please. This is exactly what was done by those Sahaba of Muhammad who were not permitted to migrate to Medina because of a contract reached at between Muhammad and the Meccan society. So they were left with no choice but to take their revenge as they thought best. And for that they were not condemned by Muhammad. So some wire media can be adopted if you are intelligent enough to devise things, but still innocent people will not be permitted to be killed for the criminals. The modern warfare, guerrilla warfare, is not an Islamic way of warfare in that you hit blindly. The purpose is just to create disorder and nothing more. And this warfare is not as productive as the Islamic way. If you are more meaningful with a certain aim, if you are restricted only to hit the criminal, the result would be far better than the normal guerrilla warfare. It's not impossible, it is possible. As I can conceive things, if I were to decide, I would decide definitely in the favor of Islam out of conviction as well, not out of respect for Islamic orders alone, but out of conviction. I know this is a far better way of dethroning a usurper if you hit at the enemy and strike only at the criminal. So this is the last question, right? Adhan.